The war was over. He had won every battle, and Japan's greatest general rode to his brother's gates as a hero. They turned him away. What does the man who builds a shogun fear enough to destroy his own blood?
He never lost a battle. In 6 years, he destroyed the most powerful family in Japan. Then, his own brother ordered his death. What does the first shogun fear more than any enemy?
Minamoto no Yoritomo was not a battlefield general. When his father was destroyed in the Heiji Rebellion of 1159, the 13-year-old Yoritomo was captured and should have been executed. His life was spared by a woman who pleaded for mercy. He spent the next 20 years in exile in Izu, a minor figure in a provincial house. What he developed in that time was not military skill. It was political intelligence. When the Genpei War began in 1180, Yoritomo raised his flag in the east and built the administrative machine that would eventually control Japan.
His half-brother had a different story entirely. Minamoto no Yoshitsune was born in 1159, 12 years younger than Yoritomo, raised in Kurama Temple north of Kyoto after their father's death. History is uncertain where he learned to fight. Legend says supernatural beings taught him in the mountain forests. What the records make clear is that when Yoshitsune emerged as a warrior, he was unlike anything Japan had seen. A tactician whose instinct for decisive, unexpected action seemed to operate at a different speed than everyone around him. Yoshitsune joined Yoritomo in 1180 when his older brother was gathering forces in the Kanto region. They had barely known each other, raised in different parts of Japan, separated by the catastrophe that killed their father. What Yoritomo needed was someone who could win battles. What Yoshitsune needed was a lord who could give his ability a purpose. The fit was perfect and temporary. For the duration of the Genpei War, they were a complete military organization. Yoritomo provided the strategy, the logistics, and the political framework. Yoshitsune provided the victories.
The first great proof came at Ichi-no-Tani in 1184. The Taira had fortified a narrow coastal position. Sea on one side, steep cliffs behind, defended walls in front. The orthodox military response was a grinding frontal assault. Yoshitsune ordered a cavalry charge down the cliff face instead. It was considered physically impossible. He led it himself. The horses fell, scrambled, and fell again. Some riders died. Those who reached the bottom hit the Taira position from its undefended rear. The fortress collapsed in hours.
At Yashima in 1185, Yoshitsune crossed the sea in a storm his own captains refused. He arrived when no attack was expected. A Taira ship placed a fan on a pole at its bow, a ritual challenge to Minamoto marksmanship. Yoshitsune's archer, Nasu no Yochi, hit it from the deck of a moving ship. It was a gesture of such audacity that it broke Taira morale before the battle was fully joined.
Each victory made Yoshitsune more famous. Each victory made his brother less comfortable.
The Genpei War ended on April 25th, 1185, at the Straits of Dan-no-Ura, where opposing tides run in opposite directions. The Taira were destroyed in a naval battle that lasted 1 day. The child Emperor Antoku, 7 years old, was carried into the sea by his grandmother, who told him the ocean floor was paradise. Several pieces of the imperial regalia went with them. Yoshitsune had delivered the most decisive military victory in a generation. He was 26 years old.
Then came the decision that destroyed him. After Dan-no-Ura, Yoshitsune entered Kyoto in triumph. The imperial court, grateful for the destruction of the Taira, offered him court rank and titles. He accepted. Yoritomo had given explicit instructions to his warriors: do not accept imperial titles without his permission. The court's power to grant titles to warriors was precisely how the old order had controlled military power for centuries. Yoshitsune had handed the emperor independent authority over Yoritomo's greatest general. Whether it was naivete or defiance, the effect was identical. He now had a legitimacy separate from his brothers.
Yoshitsune arrived at the border of Kamakura in 1185, expecting the welcome due the man who had won the war. He was refused entry. He waited for weeks at Koshigoe, a small town near the city gates, and wrote a letter, the Koshigoe-jo, protesting his loyalty and bewilderment. The letter is one of the most anguished documents in Japanese history. A brilliant man who had won every battle on his brother's behalf, trying to understand why he was being treated as an enemy. Yoritomo never responded.
The refusal was not personal, it was architectural. Yoritomo was building something Japan had never seen. A government where military power answered to one warrior house alone, entirely independent of the emperor's court. For this to work, every warrior needed one source of authority: Yoritomo, a general of Yoshitsune's reputation, with independent court relationships and the emperor's gratitude, was not a subordinate. He was an alternative center of power. The man who had never lost a battle was now a structural impossibility inside the system his victories had made possible.
Yoshitsune tried to fight back. In late 1185, with Yoritomo's forces moving against him, he attempted to raise an army and sail west to attack. The attempt fell apart almost immediately. Most commanders feared Yoritomo more. A storm forced his fleet back to shore. He fled into obscurity with a handful of loyal followers, including the warrior monk Benkei, who had been with him since before the war. From the most celebrated general in Japan, he became a fugitive. The transition took approximately 3 months.
For 3 years, Yoshitsune found refuge in the far north. Fujiwara no Hidehira, ruler of Mutsu and head of the northern Fujiwara clan, sheltered him at Hiraizumi, a city of gold-roofed temples that operated almost independently of Kamakura. Hidehira had his own reasons to resist Yoritomo.
Kamakura's provincial authority was slowly encircling northern Fujiwara territory. Yoshitsune was both guest and potential asset, a general without an army, hidden in the one territory where Yoritomo's reach had not yet arrived. For 3 years, he survived. Then, Hidehira died.
Fujiwara no Hidehira died in 1187. On his deathbed, he commanded his son Yasuhira directly: protect Yoshitsune and use him as a military commander if Yoritomo attacks. It was the last intelligent political calculation the northern Fujiwara ever made. Yoritomo issued Yasuhira an ultimatum: surrender Yoshitsune or face military invasion. He also sent a declaration naming Yoshitsune an outlaw, an official sanction for exactly what he needed Yasuhira to do. Yasuhira was not his father. He had neither the political acuity nor the military confidence to refuse Kamakura.
On June 15th, 1189, Yasuhira's forces surrounded the mansion at Koromogawa no Tachi, where Yoshitsune was staying. A surprise attack, a betrayal by the last patron he trusted. Yoshitsune's retinue was small and had no warning. In the fighting that followed, the warrior monk Benkei is said to have stood at the gate until arrows filled his body, holding position so Yoshitsune could complete his final act inside. The account may be legend. The loyalty it describes is not.
Inside the burning mansion, Yoshitsune killed his wife and child to spare them from capture. Then he sat in the posture of meditation, recited a Buddhist prayer, and drove his sword into his own body. He was 30 years old. His head was sent to Kamakura, preserved in sake, arriving after 12 days' travel. Yoritomo is said to have verified the identification personally. Shortly afterward, he launched a military campaign against the entire northern Fujiwara clan, eliminating the last power in Japan capable of sheltering a rival. There was no one left who could threaten him.
What Yoritomo feared was not personal, it was systemic. In the old Japan, a general's authority derived from imperial appointment. A supremely talented commander could, at any moment, receive imperial backing to act independently of his lord. This was not theoretical. It was the exact mechanism the Taira had used against the Minamoto, and that Yoshitsune had already demonstrated by accepting court rank after Dan no Ura. Yoritomo's entire political project required breaking this mechanism permanently. Yoshitsune's death was that break made complete.
The system Yoritomo built specifically prevented another Yoshitsune. He created Gokenin, housemen bound directly to Kamakura, not to individual generals. He appointed Shugo and Jito, provincial constables and estate stewards answering to his government alone. Imperial appointment of military figures became ceremonial. The Kamakura shogunate, established after 1192, was the first government in Japanese history where warrior power was institutionalized.
rather than personal. Every subsequent shogunate, Muromachi, Edo, built on the same architecture. The price of building it was the destruction of the man whose victories had made it possible.
Yoshitsune became the most beloved figure in Japanese history. The Gikkeiki, the Tales of Yoshitsune, reimagined his life as a sequence of miracles and tragedies, with Benkei as the eternal loyal companion. No plays and kabuki transformed him from a historical general into a symbol, the brilliant doomed hero destroyed by jealousy. Yoritomo became the cold man who couldn't forgive what he couldn't match. The history is more complicated than that, but Japan never stopped grieving for the man who never lost and never found a way to survive the peace his victories created.
No one knew his name, but he saved the man who would become Shogun, ran the most dangerous intelligence network of the Sengoku era, and vanished into shadow. The real Hattori Hanzo. Coming next.
Minamoto no Yoritomo built a system of government that lasted 700 years. He neutralized every threat to his authority with mechanical precision. He was correct in almost every political calculation he ever made. History remembers him as the cold man who killed his gifted brother. Yoshitsune's story is the one that endures. But without the man who built the administration, the general who won every battle would have been a single brilliant flame, burning out in a Japan that stayed unchanged. What Yoritomo created outlasted everything, including the brother he destroyed to build it.